Battle stations, Jack ordered, his voice calm as the thunder moved into position between the swarm and the fleeing civilian ships. Admiral, give them a proper introduction. The ship's AI responded by activating its full sensor suite. Detailed scans of the approaching swarm ships appeared on the main screen, analyzed in seconds by the Thunder's quantum computers. 37 bioorganic vessels detected, Admiral reported. Their offensive capabilities are primitive compared to our last engagement with their kind. Dr. Blue worked at her station, marveling at the technology at her fingertips. Captain, these readings. The ship's hull isn't just armor. It's a massive quantum computer network. The Ghost Fleet's greatest secret, Jack nodded, watching the approaching enemy. Every ship was a quantum supercomputer disguised as a primitive warship. We let our enemies think we were behind them in technology. Made them careless. The first wave of swarm ships launched their attack, biological missiles streaking through space toward the Thunder. The quantum shields flickered almost lazily, dissolving the projectiles into harmless particles. Their weapons can't penetrate our defenses, Dr. Blue reported excitedly. The shield technology. It's not just blocking their attacks, it's learning from them. Jack leaned forward in his chair. Admiral, show them why they should have left this sector alone. Fire pattern Alpha. Hidden weapon ports across the Thunder's hull opened. What appeared to be standard laser cannons revealed themselves to be quantum disruptors, weapons that could tear apart the fabric of space itself. The first shot caught a swarm ship dead center. Instead of a normal explosion, the bioorganic vessel simply came apart at the atomic level, its particles scattered across space like cosmic dust. By the stars, Dr. Gray's voice came over the comm, filled with awe. One shot. It just... How is this possible? Quantum targeting systems online, Admiral announced. Enemy battle patterns analyzed. They are attempting to adapt, but their biological evolution cannot match our computational speed. 3 more swarm ships vanished under the Thunder's fire. The remaining vessels began to retreat, their hive mind recognizing a superior force. Don't let them escape, Jack ordered. If any get away, they'll evolve countermeasures. Admiral, deploy the ghost field. Space itself seemed to ripple around the Thunder. A wave of quantum energy spread outward, catching the retreating swarm ships in its web. Their bioorganic hulls began to crystallize, frozen in time and space. Ghost field at maximum power, Admiral reported. Enemy fleet contained. Awaiting final orders, Captain. Dr. Blue's antennas trembled as she read the sensor data. The field, it's stopping time itself around their ships. The technology required for this. Jack stood from his chair, looking at the trapped enemy fleet. Now you understand why we hid our true capabilities, why we let the galaxy think we had retreated to our home world. The power to stop time itself. It was too dangerous to let others know we had it. The Thunder hung in space, its true nature finally revealed. What had appeared to be an ancient relic was actually one of the most advanced warships ever created, a testament to humanity's mastery of deception and warfare. Admiral, Jack commanded, finish it. Show them why the Ghost Fleet was never defeated. We just chose to wait in the shadows. The quantum disruptors powered up for one final barrage, ready to remove all traces of the swarm from this sector of space. Dr. James Miller stood at his lab window, watching the massive alien ship hover above New York City. 6 years of secret work was about to pay off, but he couldn't tell anyone. Not yet. They're landing in Central Park, his assistant Robert said, eyes glued to the live news feed, just like they said they would in their transmissions. Miller nodded, remembering the first time his team had decoded the aliens' language. It had started with basic mathematics, then moved to simple patterns, and finally to full conversations. The aliens who called themselves the Visitors had been broadcasting their communications without encryption, never imagining that a primitive species could understand them. The first aliens stepped out of their ship, tall and elegant in their silver-white suits. Cameras flashed as reporters fought for the best angles. The alien raised its four-fingered hand in greeting, and a mechanical voice came from a device on its chest. "People of Earth, we come in peace." Miller watched as his computer translated their real words, spoken in their native tongue. "Look at them scramble like insects. This will be easier than we thought." He kept his face neutral, though his hands tightened into fists. The world leaders gathering for this historic meeting had no idea that Miller's team had been feeding them intelligence for months. Every conversation, every transmission, every private joke the visitors made about humans, all of it had been recorded and translated. The alien delegation moved through the crowd, their translator devices offering friendly greetings while they spoke among themselves in their language. "Their technology is primitive," one said. "They haven't even reached their moon in the past 50 years. "Such a waste of resources," another added. "But they'll be useful once we establish the protection agreement." Miller's phone buzzed. The president wanted confirmation of the translations. He quickly typed back, "Everything matches our previous intelligence. They're sticking to their plan." On the screen, the visitors were now shaking hands with world leaders. Their public translator spoke about friendship and cultural exchange, while their private words mocked Earth's simple governments and basic understanding of science. "Dr. Miller," Robert called out, "they're requesting the first private meeting with the UN Security Council tomorrow." Miller smiled for the first time that day. "Perfect. That's exactly what we've been waiting for." He picked up his briefcase, containing 6 years of translated alien conversations, technical documents, and military communications. "They think they're so clever, Robert. They think we're just children who happen to catch their attention." "When will you tell them?" Robert asked. "Not yet. Let them get comfortable first. Let them think their plan is working." Miller watched as the aliens entered the UN building, their private conversations still streaming across his computer screen. They were laughing about how easy it would be to manipulate these simple humans. "Sometimes," Miller said, "the best way to win is to let your opponent think they're smarter than you. Tomorrow, they'll start their real negotiations, thinking we can't understand their true intentions." He closed his laptop with a satisfied click. "And we'll be recording every word." The large conference room at the United Nations fell silent as the visitors began their presentation. Their leader, a tall figure wearing an ornate silver robe, stood before the assembled world leaders. Behind a pillar, Dr. Miller adjusted his earpiece, listening to both the public and private alien communications. "We offer you advanced medical technology," the visitor's translation device announced smoothly. But in their own language, they said something very different. "Show them the basic health tools. That should distract them from the mineral rights agreement." Miller typed quickly on his tablet, sending real-time translations to the world leaders' secure devices. He watched as several of them kept perfect poker faces while reading the true messages. "Your people suffer from such simple diseases," one visitor whispered to another in their language. "It's almost funny. They still die from infections we cured thousands of years ago." The American president coughed politely, hiding a smile behind his hand. The visitors took it as a sign of being impressed by their offer. "We also wish to establish cultural exchange programs," the lead visitor announced through the translator, "but in their own tongue. We need to study their weaknesses up close. Send our people into their cities." Robert passed Miller a note. "Military satellites detecting more alien ships in high orbit." Miller nodded. The visitors hadn't mentioned these ships in their public talks, but their private chatter revealed the truth. They were positioning forces while pretending to negotiate. "Such primitive weapons they have," one visitor commander said privately to another. "Their biggest bombs wouldn't even scratch our smallest ship." If only they knew about the defensive systems Earth had built, based on their own intercepted technical documents. Miller smiled, remembering how much they'd learned from the aliens' careless technical discussions. "We request permission to establish diplomatic bases in your major cities," the lead visitor announced. Their private words told a different story. "Perfect locations for control centers, once we implement the protection protocol." The Chinese president leaned forward. "We need time to consider these generous offers," she said carefully. The visitor's private channel erupted with amusement. "Look how excited the little ones get," one laughed in their language. "They think they're actually part of the negotiations." Miller watched as more messages appeared on his screen. The visitors were discussing their real plans openly, never suspecting that every word was being recorded and translated. They talked about Earth's resources, about how easily humans could be controlled, about their plans to slowly take over the planet's infrastructure. "Tomorrow we'll show them the technology package," the lead visitor said privately. "That always impresses primitive species. They'll sign anything once they see the shiny toys we bring." As the meeting ended, Miller packed up his equipment. The visitors swept out of the room, heads held high, completely confident in their superiority. They didn't notice how the human leaders gathered in small groups, sharing knowing looks. "They think we're so far behind," Robert whispered to Miller. "Let them think that," Miller replied. "The more they underestimate us, the better our position becomes. Every insult, every secret plan they discuss just gives us more ammunition for when we finally reveal the truth." The massive screen behind the visitors displayed images of advanced technology that made the human delegates lean forward in apparent awe. What the aliens didn't notice was the small device in Dr. Miller's hand, recording and translating their private conversations. "Show them the basic space drive next," the lead visitor said in their language. The shiny lights always hypnotize primitive species. Through their translator, they announced, "This technology could revolutionize your space travel." Miller watched as the Russian delegate pretended to take excited notes. In reality, human engineers had already begun building their own version of this technology, thanks to the technical specifications carelessly discussed in alien transmissions. "Now for the important part," the lead visitor said privately to his team. Their translator spoke smoothly. "In exchange for these technologies, we request mining rights in these regions." A map appeared, showing key locations rich in rare minerals. Look how their eyes light up, one visitor mocked in their language. "Like children seeing candy." The British Prime Minister raised her hand. "These are very generous offers," she said carefully. "But these mining locations include populated areas." The visitors spoke quickly among themselves. They noticed that, perhaps they're not as stupid as they look. Their translator responded, "We have solutions for relocating your people comfortably." Miller's screen filled with their private chatter. "Once the agreement is signed, we won't need their permission anyway. Let them think they have a choice." The trade agreement appeared on the main screen. The visitors had spent hours crafting it in their private meetings, laughing about the hidden clauses and double meanings that would give them complete control over Earth's resources. "We've prepared this simple document for your understanding," their translator said politely. In their own language. "The fools won't understand half the terms. By the time they figure it out, it will be too late." Miller sent a quick message to the world leaders. They've included 3 hidden clauses about military access. Page 7, 12, and 15. He watched as the delegates carefully turned to those pages, appearing to admire the fancy diplomatic language while actually noting the deceptions. "Should we explain the resource allocation terms?" one visitor asked privately. "No, no," their leader replied in their language. "The less they understand, the better. Just show them where to sign." The UN Secretary General stood up. "We would like 3 days to review this generous offer," he said, bowing slightly. The visitor's private channel exploded with amusement. 3 days to stare at words they can't possibly comprehend. How adorable. "Of course," their translator said smoothly. "We understand the need for proper procedures." As the meeting ended, Miller watched the visitors gather their materials, their private conversation full of victory and mockery. "Soon we'll own half their planet," one said, "and they'll thank us for it." Robert joined Miller as they packed up their recording equipment. "They think they got us completely fooled," he whispered. Miller nodded. "Every word they speak brings them closer to their own trap. When we reveal everything at tomorrow's session, I want to see their faces when they realize who the real fools were." The visitors left the room, confident in their superiority, never noticing the small smile on Miller's face as he saved another day's worth of damning translations. The United Nations bunker, 50 feet underground, buzzed with activity. Dr. Miller and his team worked frantically, organizing weeks of translated alien conversations into clear evidence. On multiple screens, the visitors' private meetings played, each one more damning than the last. "Look at this one," Robert said, pointing to a recent recording. The visitors were laughing about humans' primitive attempts at diplomacy. "Once we have control of their water supplies," a visitor commander was saying, "they'll have to accept any terms we give them. Primitive species always break when they're thirsty." Miller added it to the growing collection. "They're getting bolder," he said. Yesterday, they were discussing plans to replace human leaders with their own puppets. On another screen, the visitors' lead diplomat was explaining their strategy. "Let them feel smart for a few more days. The more they think they're understanding our deal, the easier it will be to implement the real changes." The door opened, and General Thompson walked in. "How's our other project going?" he asked quietly. Miller pulled up a different screen. It showed Earth's new defense system, built using the visitors' own designs they'd carelessly discussed in their private conversations. "Ready and hidden," Miller replied. "They still think our satellites are primitive communication devices." "Their arrogance is almost unbelievable," Robert said, playing another recording. In it, the visitors were mocking human architecture, unaware that Earth's engineers had already improved on their building designs. "They call us primitive," General Thompson said, "but they're the ones who never bothered to encrypt their communications properly. They're the ones who freely discuss their military technology, thinking we can't understand." Miller nodded, remembering how easy it had been to translate their technical documents once they'd cracked the language. The visitors' casual conversations about their weapons, their shields, their space drives, all of it had been carefully recorded and analyzed. "Here's the latest," Robert called out, pointing to a live feed. The visitors were having a private meeting in their ship. "Tomorrow we'll begin Phase 2, their leader was saying. "These humans are so excited about our gifts that they don't even read the terms carefully. In 1 year, we'll own everything of value on this mudball. Look at their faces when we show them our ships," another added, "like pets seeing their food bowl." Miller typed quickly, adding these new insults to their collection. "They've given us everything we need," he said. "Every conversation, every mockery, every secret plan, all recorded and translated." "When do we reveal that we understand them?" Robert asked. General Thompson smiled. "Tomorrow, during the final signing ceremony. They're bringing their entire diplomatic court, thinking it's their moment of triumph. Their private security channels show they're not bringing any weapons," Miller added. "They think they're completely safe here." The general nodded. "Keep monitoring them. If they're this careless about their plans, they might reveal something else useful before tomorrow." As the team returned to work, another transmission came through. The visitors were laughing about how they'd celebrate their victory tomorrow, never suspecting they were walking into a trap of their own making. "Let them laugh," Miller said quietly. "Tomorrow, we'll learn who the real primitives are." The silence in the UN Assembly Hall was absolute. Dr. Miller stood at the podium, continuing to speak in the visitors' language, while their delegation sat frozen in shock. "Let me share another interesting conversation," Miller said, pressing a button. The screens showed the visitors' leader in a private meeting from just 2 days ago. "These humans are so primitive," the recording played, with translations appearing below, "they'd probably still think gravity is magic." The lead visitor rose from their seat, their silver robe trembling. How long?" they asked in their language, forgetting to use their translator. 6 years, Miller replied in their tongue. "Every transmission, every private joke, every military secret you discussed so carelessly." He switched to English for the audience's benefit. "They never encrypted their important messages. They thought we were too primitive to understand. More recordings played. The visitors watched in horror as their private conversations about Earth's worthless culture appeared on screen. Their mockery of human technology, their plans to exploit Earth's resources, their schemes to manipulate human leaders, all exposed. "Remember this meeting?" Miller asked, playing another clip. It showed the visitors laughing about how they would celebrate once they owned Earth's water supplies. The alien leader's translator device crackled. This is a misunderstanding," it said mechanically. "No misunderstanding." The UN Secretary General stood up. "Dr. Miller, please show them what else we've learned from their educational conversations." The screens changed to show Earth's new defense systems, built from the visitors' own designs. In orbit, their ships discovered they couldn't activate their engines. Human engineers had already copied and improved their technology. "Impossible," a visitor scientist whispered. "They can't have understood our drive systems. They're too primitive." Miller finished for them. "Like these." He pressed another button, revealing designs for advanced weapons, shields, and faster-than-light drives, all reverse-engineered from the visitors' casual technical discussions. The alien delegation broke into panicked conversation, forgetting entirely about their translators. Miller let their words play across the screens, letting everyone see their fear and confusion. "Your ships are currently contained," Miller explained in their language. "The defense grid you see was built using your own specifications, the ones you so kindly discussed in open transmissions." The lead visitor sank back into their chair. "Why?" they began. "Why reveal this now?" Miller smiled. "Because your entire diplomatic fleet is here. Your leadership thought they were coming to witness a triumph. Instead, they're here to see the consequences of their arrogance." The screens now showed recordings from every major visitor meeting about Earth. Their plans, their mockery, their true intentions, all laid bare for the galaxy to see. "We've transmitted these recordings to every spacefaring race in your alliance," the Secretary General announced. "They're quite interested in how you conduct your diplomatic missions." The visitors' leader looked around the room, seeing not primitive humans, but equals who had outplayed them at every step. Their perfect plan had fallen apart because of one simple mistake. They had underestimated humanity. Miller stepped back from the podium. "Now," he said in both languages, "shall we discuss a real trade agreement? One without hidden clauses about mining rights or water control." The visitors, their arrogance shattered, could only nod in defeat. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light-speed travel. On every alien world, screens showed the recordings of the visitors' failed attempt to deceive Earth. Dr. Miller watched from his office as reports came in from different star systems. "Another alien race has cut ties with the visitors," Robert announced, checking the latest transmissions. "That's the fifth one today." On Miller's main screen, the visitors' diplomatic fleet remained trapped in Earth's orbit, surrounded by defense systems built from their own designs. Their leaders had been in emergency meetings for hours, trying to salvage what remained of their reputation. "Their home government is in chaos," Miller said, translating a new message. Their entire diplomatic strategy was based on finding primitive species to exploit. Now everyone knows their methods. The door opened, and General Thompson entered with fresh reports. "Their military tried to send a rescue fleet," he said with a smile. "They turned back when they realized we've already upgraded their weapons designs. Improved them, actually," Miller corrected. "Their engineers were quite careless in their technical discussions, always talking about theoretical improvements they were too lazy to implement." On another screen, representatives from other alien civilizations were requesting direct meetings with Earth's leaders. No more going through the visitors as intermediaries. "They want to talk about real trade now," Robert said, reading the messages. "Fair exchanges of technology and culture. No hidden clauses, no secret agendas." The visitors' leader appeared on the main screen, requesting another meeting. Their once proud demeanor was gone, replaced by desperate diplomacy. "Please," they said in their language, not bothering with the translator. "We must discuss terms for our fleet's release." Miller leaned forward. The terms are simple, he replied in their tongue. Full disclosure of all your hidden operations, real technology exchanges, not the basic models you plan to give us, and public acknowledgement of your attempted deception. You don't understand, the visitor leader protested. Our economy depends on finding new worlds to exploit? Miller finished. Yes, we understand perfectly. We have recordings of all your economic planning sessions too. General Thompson checked his tablet. 3 more alien races are offering us membership in their trading alliance, he reported. Direct membership, not through the Visitors Protection Program. On the screen, the visitor leader watched helplessly as their influence crumbled. Centuries of carefully built diplomatic power, destroyed by their own arrogance and careless words. Your ships will be released, Miller said, when the agreements are signed. Real agreements this time, witnessed by representatives from every spacefaring race in this sector. And if we refuse? Miller played another recording. The visitors' own military commanders discussing weaknesses in their fleet design. We can disable your ships faster than you can power up your drives. Would you like a demonstration? The alien leader's shoulders slumped in defeat. Behind them, their once mighty diplomatic fleet hung powerless in Earth's orbit, surrounded by humanity's upgraded versions of their own technology. We'll sign, they said quietly. As the transmission ended, Robert turned to Miller. Hard to believe they thought we were primitive just yesterday. Miller smiled. Sometimes the best weapon isn't technology, he said. Sometimes it's just paying attention when your enemy thinks you're too stupid to understand them. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with activity. Representatives from 23 spacefaring civilizations had gathered to witness something unprecedented. The formal apology of the visitor empire. Dr. Miller sat in Earth's newly assigned seat, no longer in the observer section, where primitive species were usually placed. Robert handed him the latest intelligence report. Their government is falling apart, Robert whispered. 3 major trading partners canceled their agreements this morning. The visitors' leader stood at the center of the hall, their silver robes now plain and undecorated. Their once proud posture was gone, replaced by the humble stance of a defeated power. We apologize, they began in the common galactic language, for our deception toward Earth, and they paused, struggling with the words, and for similar deceptions toward other developing worlds. On floating screens around the hall, evidence of the visitors' schemes played continuously, not just their failed attempt to deceive Earth, but records of dozens of other worlds they had manipulated over centuries. Your apology is noted, the council leader said, but the council requires more than words. Earth's representatives have provided extensive evidence of your empire's systematic exploitation of developing civilizations. Miller watched as more alien diplomats arrived, each carrying reports of past dealings with the visitors. Their perfect system of finding and exploiting primitive species had been exposed, and now everyone wanted to review their past agreements. We thought we were helping, the visitor leader tried to explain. By mocking them. Miller interrupted, standing up. By calling them primitive while stealing their resources. He pressed a button, playing another recording of visitors laughing about their clever exploitation of a young civilization. The council chamber fell silent as the recording played. Even species that had long been allies with the visitors turned away in disgust. Our preliminary investigation, the council leader announced, shows evidence of resource theft from 37 developing worlds. The penalties under galactic law are severe. The visitors' delegation huddled together, their private channel now silent. They had learned the hard way about speaking freely near other species. Furthermore, the council continued, Earth has demonstrated that the visitors deliberately withheld advanced technology from developing worlds while exploiting their resources. This violates our most basic laws of interstellar conduct. Miller stood again. We don't seek punishment, he said, surprising the council. We propose rehabilitation. Let the visitors make real technological and cultural exchanges. Let them learn to trade fairly. The visitor leader looked up, hope flickering in their eyes. Under Earth's supervision, Miller added firmly. since we've already proven we understand their language and technology better than they expected. The council buzzed with discussion. Finally, the council leaders spoke. Agreed. The visitor empire will operate under Earth's oversight for the next 50 years. All their diplomatic and trade agreements must be approved by Earth's representatives. The visitors' leader bowed their head, accepting the judgment. Their empire hadn't been destroyed, but their days of exploiting primitive species were over. As the session ended, Robert turned to Miller. 50 years of supervising the people who called us primitive, he said. That's quite a turnaround. Miller smiled. Let's hope they learn something about judging other civilizations, he replied. After all, the species they thought couldn't understand them now controls their future. The visitors filed out of the chamber, their once mighty empire now humbled by the very primitives they had planned to exploit. 1 year after the historic council meeting, Dr. Miller stood at his old observation window. Instead of watching alien ships with suspicion, he now saw a different sight. Human vessels preparing for their first faster-than-light journeys. The Andromeda mission launches today, Robert said, joining him at the window, using our improved version of the visitor's drive system. Miller nodded. The ships rising into orbit were elegant combinations of human innovation and alien technology, not given as gifts, but earned through humanity's cleverness. How are our former friends doing? Miller asked, referring to the visitors. Robert checked his tablet. Following the rules, finally. Their latest trade agreement with the Centauri colonies was completely transparent. No hidden clauses, no secret meetings. On screens around the office, reports showed the changing galaxy. Earth had become a major power, not through force or deception, but through intelligence and diplomacy. Their supervision of the visitors had shown other species that humans could be trusted with power. Another alien race requested Earth's mediation for their trade dispute, Robert announced. That's the third this month. Miller smiled. They trust us because we exposed the truth without seeking revenge. We showed them a better way. Outside, more ships took off, carrying human ambassadors to distant worlds. Each vessel's crew included linguistics experts, taught by Miller's team to avoid the mistakes the visitors had made. The visitors' latest cultural exchange program was actually successful, Robert said. Real technology sharing, real diplomatic relations. They're learning. Amazing what happens when you can't rely on finding primitive species to exploit, Miller replied. A holographic message appeared, showing the Galactic Council chamber. Earth's seat was now among the senior members, their reputation for fair dealing and technological innovation earning them respect across the stars. Remember when they thought we couldn't understand basic gravity? Robert laughed. Now they're studying our improvements to their drive systems, Miller said. Turns out the primitives had some good ideas. The door opened, and a young diplomat entered, one of the visitors, part of their new training program. They bowed respectfully. Dr. Miller, they said in perfect English, having learned it properly instead of relying on translators. The Council requests Earth's presence for the new species contact protocols. Miller nodded. After the visitors' exposure, the galaxy had developed new rules for contacting developing civilizations. Earth's experience had taught them all valuable lessons about respect and assumptions. Tell them I'll be there, Miller said. And remind everyone to check their universal translators. We don't want any misunderstandings. The young visitor smiled at the gentle joke and left. Their people had learned humility, and the galaxy was better for it. Hard to believe it all started because they didn't encrypt their transmissions, Robert mused. Miller watched as more ships rose into the sky, carrying humanity's representatives to the stars. They thought they were so superior that they didn't need to be careful, he said. That was their biggest mistake. And our biggest opportunity, Robert added. Together, they watched Earth's ships disappear into the night sky, carrying human wisdom and innovation to distant stars. The species once dismissed as primitive had become teachers to the galaxy, showing everyone a better way to reach for the stars. The universe, they had proved, belonged to those who listened and learned, not to those who assumed their own superiority. The end.